whatever the day after looks like, we need the codes of the future. We need the sutras of the future. We need the new story of value, right, that can hold us in the future. And that we're writing these codes for the day after. Now, of course, that shouldn't be a sharp dichotomy. Does everyone get that? That shouldn't be a sharp dichotomy. It's both. And of course, mood matters, right? And actually part of what we're doing is changing the mood of the future. And I've taken contradictory positions on this, but the contradiction is at its core a paradox. Opposites are often joined at the hip. Is our intention in articulating this new story of value, is it in order to avert the meta-crisis? Or is it for the day after? Okay? Is it in order to avert the meta-crisis? In other words, if we tell this new story of value, we can actually generate the structures of consciousness, which in turn generate the structures of economics and the structures of governance, which will allow the meta-crisis to be averted? Or is there a kind of inevitability, the kind that is well documented in the Doomer literature? And the Doomer literature is an enormously intelligent literature. Just read one book, Overshoot, is a good place to start. You can read how Joanna Macy became a Doomer. It's one example of the Doomer community, but there's 7 or 8 serious thinker writers who are gathering an enormous amount of information who have come to a Doomer conclusion. I think that conclusion is wrong, but it's a very, very well-reasoned and intelligent conclusion, which is hard to argue based just on the material information and the state of where the vectors of the world are pointing today, right? And to ignore it or dismiss it based on just kind of generalized inclinations or supercilious or superficial observations that sound compelling, but actually lack the depth of empirical data, both interior and exterior empirical data, is simply wrong. It's a terrible mistake. So I want to just understand that there is a real position that says that there's inevitability. I don't think that position's true. And I think that there is a genuine possibility to actually evolve, to move from what we call Homo sapien, the old human, to Homo Amor, the new human and the new humanity, which is not a blissful idealism. It's not unrealistic. It's actually the nature of reality. It is the natural evolutionary movement is for matter, the first Big Bang, to triumph after all of its stages in life, for life to triumph after all of its evolutionary stages in the depth of the human self-reflective mind. And then the human self-reflective mind, which is the third Big Bang, right? The biosphere, life is the second Big Bang. Life triumphs in the depth of the human self-reflective mind, the third Big Bang. And then this third Big Bang goes through all of its levels of evolution that are traced by about 100 different theorists, but it doesn't go on in an ad infinitum loop. It actually is not only circular, it's also directional, it's also going somewhere, it's also pulled by the future. The future places its attention on the present and calls it forward. And so the depth of the self-reflective human mind, which we call Homo sapien, the wisdom of Homo sapien, actually can and will, because that's the nature of evolution, jump, deepen, and a new human actually can and will emerge. That is the radical hope of the memory of the future. That's a genuine reality, and it's a genuine possibility. But it's not an inevitability, at least it's not an inevitability in time, meaning that it will happen in time, just like the doomer position is not an inevitability, but it's a genuine possibility. It's real. And on some days, my friend Elena, I'm convinced that that's a genuine possibility. But on other days, my mood shifts, and I've gathered an enormous amount of empirical data that points in a different direction. And on those other days, I think, we're preparing for the day after. We're writing, and the day after, I don't mean the day after in a kind of formal, precise way. I mean, after the systems have either broken down, or we've had a near extinction event and we need to rebuild, or there's been a death of our humanity and we need a rebellion and we need to actually reclaim our humanity at the next level. Whatever the day after looks like, we need the codes of the future. We need the sutras of the future. We need the new story of value, right, that can hold us in the future. And that we're writing these codes for the day after. Now, of course, that shouldn't be a sharp dichotomy. Does everyone get that? That shouldn't be a sharp dichotomy. It's both. And of course, mood matters, right? And actually, part of what we're doing is changing the mood of the future. And we change the mood of the future by changing our own mood, and we change our mood. And Heidegger wasn't wrong when he said mood is the fundamental constituent of reality. We change our mood by changing the way love moves in us, by changing our vision of reality, by changing the story from within which we generate consciousness. I remember years ago working with someone who was extremely depressed, and we finally explicated kind of what's the story that you're living within. And I said to him, if I lived within that story, I'd be much more depressed than you are. Right? What's the story? What's the framework? What's the story of value? What's the grammar of value that forms my sentences and shapes my mood? And so they're both true. And that's number one. Does everyone get that and why that's important to say? Those are both true. We both hold the knowing that the same evolutionary impulse that incepted reality moves through us right now. And that just like we didn't stop at carbon, and evolution moved and transmuted, and the force of she and the force of Eros and the force of value coded in cosmos sought its deeper and higher fulfillments. And those forces live in us. We are the evolutionary impulse in person. We are value coded in us, as us, and through us in person. We are the possibility of evolution. That's absolutely true. And that we can do this. Let's go. Right? Let's go. We can do this. Right? We are the evolution of love. We actually can be that Da Vinci force in this time between worlds and time between stories and create a better world. And it's not inevitable. And it's not a Pollyannish given, just like the doomer position, right, is not a doomer given. And it depends on us. And it depends on us willing to go all the way, right, and to stand all the way, and to be Homo Amor all the way. And this is absolutely worth doing. It's the most worthwhile thing we could possibly do. Even if we knew we would fail at averting the meta-crisis, I would do the exact same thing. We would write a great library. We would download it into the source code of consciousness and culture. We just put up let's give you an example, and maybe someone can put a link in the chat box. We just put up a little movie. And I want to thank Mati and Peter, Omid, Claire, who ran the project, Shati, who kind of hosted the filming of it, and so many people who worked on it in so many different ways. We literally just put it up, and like, wow, right? Like, oh my God, right? And so lots of people said to me, well, we should have made it shorter, right? Just a little, right? We should have made it shorter, like 7 minutes, and it could have gone more viral, right? I think 12,000 people watched in the first couple of days, but we could have gotten, no, that's not our point. Our point's not a quick viral clip. Our point is to actually download a deep telling of the story in the source code of culture, so that actually people who want to go deep in and actually become part of the new story, to actually become, right, a unique, individuated, irreducibly gorgeous expression of the one love, can actually hear the whole thing, and it's 97 minutes. Right? That's like, why are you making things that are 97 minutes? You're supposed to be making 5-minute viral clips. Fuck that. I apologize. Sorry. I just broke my rule. So apologize, Oriana. Sorry about that. But you get it? Okay. Oriana and I have a rule that we kind of have sacred speech in One Mountain. So, but everyone get that? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I want you to really, really get this, okay? We want to download a great library, right? A great library which source codes the future. Does everyone get that? Like, wow. Like, wow. So, and whether it averts the meta-crisis or whether it codes the days and the years and the centuries after, right? Oh my God, right?